You know, for generations, parents have agonized over having the talk with their kids. And now with the internet and social media impacting every aspect of our lives, it's arguably more important than ever. Now, along with the sex, the drugs, parents find themselves talking to teens about boundaries when it comes to what they post and pass along online. Here to help us get through it is sex and relationship expert Trina Read. Nice to see you, first of all.
Good to be back.
And this is a very stressful topic for a lot of parents, even parents like me, who's, you know, my child is not near this age, but you have to start thinking about it, right?
Yeah, and actually the best time to start thinking about it is when the child is between 8 and 10, which may seem really, really early, but the thing about that age is they understand what the concepts are, and the parent is still a big influence on them. So if you want to have the discussion about what is appropriate, what are your boundaries as a parent, you know, 8 to 10 is the best time. However, if you have a teenager and you're in the middle of this, it is a little bit sticky.
Very sticky. Now, the selfie craze is everywhere, and I'm guessing, I don't look at a lot of kids' profiles, but I'm assuming this is what they're doing. How do you talk to them about not blurring the line between sending a selfie out there, sexting? It's a weird world.
Well, there's a couple things going on. Now, first of all, sexting, there's sexting to each other. So and teens don't see it as bad, they see it as a flirtatious. So that's one of the things that parents just have to wrap their mind around, that teens are really just integrating into the social media. So where we see it as a, you know, they're sending, you know, semi-nude pictures or texts that are provocative, we see that as, oh my gosh. The teens see it as flirting. And then there's sending texts that you get. So say a teen gets a provocative text from their friend, and then they start resending it. So that's called a non-consensual text. So there's two sides to sexting. So I think when you're a parent, you really have to sit down and say, okay, you know, I understand that this is your way to flirt, but there are boundaries when it comes to it. So you know, while you're in my house, these are my rules around what is appropriate. And I also think it's important to talk to your kid about, you know, when we're young and impulsive, and like that's what teenagers are. They'll send something, and 10 years later, not think about what it will be 10 years later. So 10 years later, it might end up in an employer's inbox.
Right.
And they while they're doing it, they don't think about that sort of thing. So as a parent, you do have a right to say, you know, you live in my house, these are my rules, but also the implication of what sexting can mean to your son or daughter now and 10 years from now.
And I'm also thinking that, I mean, there are a number of different conversations, one being about how it turns into online bullying or just straight up bullying, but the other is the conversation you have with your child about valuing themselves and their body. It's sort of the same as having the sex talk.
Exactly, and one of the things I find really interesting is there's still this systemic belief that if a boy posts a picture of himself, he's cool. But if a girl posts a picture of herself, you know, her morality is at jeopardy, right? And so I think part of the difficulty is when we get these non-consensual texts that are being passed on, it's about the girls and provoking them, and I think that's part of the bullying, because when we take a look at the cases in the courts, we don't see any boys in the courts who are complaining about having their picture passed along. It's only the girls because there's that systemic belief system.
So Trina, your advice to parents, just on the outset, the first icebreaker conversation?
I would say, first of all, wrap your mind around, you know, when Elvis was Elvis, parents were going crazy. With Lady Gaga, you know, every generation has the buttons that push the parents. So this is just the teens' way of expressing themselves in the new media. And if you can wrap your mind around that instead of railing against it, it's going to have a much easier, you're going to have a much easier conversation with your child about what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, and how they should move forward, and really not to, if they get one of those texts that's non-consensual, that's, you know, oh my gosh, not to pass it along.
Yeah, that is huge. This is all great advice. TrinaRead.com. We're going to put links on our website at breakfasttelevision.ca. Lots more to learn about this. Nice to see you.
Thanks
for coming in.